For the past 19 years, other than an IFMAR World's title, the Nitro Challenge has been the one race that every racer wants to win.
I've had a love for racing ever since I was a little kid. I was an only child, and I think just to keep me occupied, my mom bought me a bicycle, and all I wanted to do was racing.
Joey Christensen, an art sculpture major still in school, used his art skills to build a unique style of track never before seen in the RC industry. The inaugural The Dirt Nitro Challenge would be held in the year 2000 with a mere 111 entries. Hemet, California would be the launching point for what would grow to be one of the biggest RC races in the world. After 7 years in Hemet, DNC would relocate in 2007 to a place that will forever be remembered as hallowed RC grounds, the Nitro Pit. It was here the prominence of this race grew, along with the entries. While Hemet DNCs brought in just over 100 entries, Arizona would elevate this race to unheard of numbers in the RC industry. As synonymous as DNC has been with challenging conditions, it was also synonymous with Arizona. After 5 years at the Nitro Pit, DNC was on the move once again. Not too far though. Hobbyists as well as top professional drivers from across the country and the world would make the pilgrimage to this annual event. The Fear Farm would be the host for the DNC the next 7 years. For most of us, this is where we made some of our strongest connections to this race. The Fear Farm, with its more than ample space, really allowed this race to take on a new vibe. It really became an RC festival. At Fear Farm's peak, entries topped 1,000. DNC's only nemesis was the weather. Year after year, the perfect storm seemed to roll into town.
It's getting old, folks, or is it? Tessmann. Well, if you're the best, you're the best.
Ty Tessmann, winning his first race here in 2010, would be one of the more consistent performers. In 2014, he would be double champion and later that year go on to become the world champion.
As far as the Nitro Challenge is concerned, Ty Tessmann, he's the best.
But DNC would not be kind to him in the years to come. A new hero would emerge and assert unparalleled dominance at this event. Ryan Maifield would win a total of 7 Nitro titles at the Arizona editions of this event. As with all things in life, everything ends. 2018 would be the last time that DNC would be held here at the Fear Farm, and possibly for the final time in Arizona. Time had run out for the Tessmanns to reconquer the Fear Farm.
We've been there for 7 years, and then just recently the facility was having some trouble keeping their structures up to code. And then the amount of money it would take to get them back up to code, the facility wasn't willing to do it. And so I just felt like it was time to make a change. And Southern California is a good fit, and the fairgrounds is good. It's just a bigger facility, you can handle more people, it's asphalt. Sometimes it's good to change things up, keep it fresh.
For the 20th running, DNC would relocate back to its California roots. But SoCal isn't exactly known for balmy weather in February. This year would be no exception.
A 1-2 punch of extreme storms continues to slam the West. A first round of heavy rain triggering mudslides and flash flooding across California.
The power of Mother Nature on full display across California tonight as millions brace for yet another round of punishing rain, wind, and snow.
The planned location for the track is deeply submerged after record-breaking rainfall the week before. The asphalt pits are dry, but are filling up slowly. What effect will the weather have for the turnout of this historic event?
It's been gnarly. I mean, we don't usually get hammered like this. I mean, we had like literally like 3 inches the other day in just one day. That's very uncommon. So I don't know, probably like an El Nino season for us, but we need the rain for sure. I mean, we need to get out of the drought, but we just don't need it all at once.
Daniel Adams sets up and prepares for what will be a week that will undoubtedly offer new and unexpected challenges. It's still 2 days before DNC officially kicks off, and yet another challenge has presented itself. Trying to find a dry track to practice on. The 5150 crew races to find some drivers. We find them at the most unlikely of places.
We are in Palm Desert, California, and we are here because there's nowhere else to run, so we came way out to the desert.
Jared Tebow, who left Kyosho in the off-season, was there with his new team, Techno RC. Ty and his off-track friend Adam Drake were also there turning laps.
We're testing. It looks like the clouds are coming, but the car's good, and just trying to get a little bit last minute testing before Nitro Challenge. Testing, yeah.
Palm Desert, with its bumpy surface, will be about the closest thing to the DNC track. Or will it? 121.8. Before long, the rain converges on Palm Desert also. So it's over to Ontario, California. At Revelation, we see a few more familiar faces, including a couple European drivers who have both found success at the Nitro Challenge. David Ronefalk is actually the incumbent Buggy champ. The rain finds us once again.
My noodles are wet.
Back at the fairgrounds, Joey plots out the pits. With only 1 day to go, he's still building the track.
If the track's already built and then it rains on it, at least you can pump the track off and, you know, kind of help shape it. But before you start at all, and all the dirt that you're going to use is soaking wet mud, and then the area that you're supposed to put the track in is soaking wet mud, then you don't really have any material to build a proper track. And so that part was stressful. It was the first time in 20 years that I thought I might have to cancel, because it's a big responsibility to make sure these people that are traveling from all over the world can come to something that's worth coming to. And, you know, they put that pressure on, not pressure, but responsibility on me, you know. So we debated canceling until Aaron and I took another walk around the facility and decided, hey man, I think we can make it happen right here.
On the eve of the 20th running of this storied race, Joey and his crew are frantically trying to complete not only the track, but all the required infrastructure. Would they finish on time, or would the welders and saws be going during seating practice? Has Joey finally met his match?
Let's do this.
5150 makes it to the track in record time. For reasons unknown, the front tires have now been swapped to the rear of Drock's rental car. The pits were virtually deserted just 2 days ago and are now populated with the industry's leading manufacturers. Oh, and JQ products. The international flair at this DNC seemed to be more grandiose than at previous installments. We saw more Europeans at this DNC than possibly at any other. Drivers like Reno Savoia, multi-time British and European champion Elliott Boots, and 4 IFMAR world champions, starting with Robert Battier, Ty Tessmann, David Ronefal, and the reigning IFMAR world champion Davide Ongaro.
You know, you can feel it though. You can feel that the guys, they want to beat you. You're like, before you win the Worlds, you're like one of the guys that everyone wants to beat. When you're a world champ, everyone wants to beat you. So that's the difference, I think.
There's so much competition here. It's basically like the Worlds because there's so many Europeans, all the top guys from the US are here. It's just, really anything could happen.
With so many champions here, will this DNC offer up more pressure? Things in the pits appear to be a bit tense. Is a rift between the Europeans and American racers forming?
I think there's one developing, and I don't know why. It's, I think with this whole gyro controversy that went down last year, I think they maybe think that we're like totally against them or like accusing them of cheating.
Senza giroscopio! No giro!
There's always some conspiracy that the Americans think that the Euros are using gyros. They can check all they want, can't they? They checked it out of the world, so. And didn't find anything, so I don't believe it now. I don't think the gyro would help you here.
We go to races together and everybody's friends, and now it's like they don't want to look at us, talk to us. I don't know. It's weird. So, but it's all good. You know, we're just go out on the track and race it out and see who comes out on top. And you know, it is what it is. I mean, I guess rivalry isn't a bad thing, but at the end of the day, we all need to work together to race and put on a good show. So
I think we're all trying to beat each other. So I mean, some people run each other over easier than others, but overall, I think we're all just trying to get out on the track. You're going to see a lot of chaos.
Or is it just friendly competition?
Maybe, yeah, competition.
That being said, even in a friendly game of cornhole, drivers team up in a predictable fashion.
Europeans versus the Americans. This is just practice rounds.
Yeah.
First time for me and Elliott playing, so. Yeah, they won now, but it's just practice.
That's right.
We'll have a rematch later.
As with any other DNC, this race is always the first opportunity to see how drivers perform after changes in their sponsorships. This year was no exception. Lutz and Techno parted ways. He's now with Agama. Longtime Associated driver Cav has jumped over to S-Works. Both drivers have found themselves on much smaller teams.
It's slightly different, but I mean, it's been working really good. Obviously, it's a little more challenging just having, a little less help, just around you, but I have no excuses. So really just getting, I think, the setup a little bit more dialed in and kind of, go from there.
The biggest news story in the off-season was Reds Racing firing Ryan Maifield.
They pulled the fast one on us, but in the end it worked out well for Ryan. He ends up running better equipment, getting better results from Mugen, so we'll take it. First Dirt Nitro Challenge, he won all 3 classes. The following year, he was on the podium. I don't think he won any classes though, but then to come back and win 2 out of 3, be on the podium in the 3rd class, was pretty awesome. And he's won AMS, he's won quite a few races for it, so it's been good.
With so many decorated drivers here, this Nitro Challenge is starting to feel more like a world championship than just another DNC.
It's more important is the friendship, that you have with all these guys. We see them week in and week out, and we get to have fun with them. At the end of the day, any way you look at it, we're racing toy cars. We all got jobs. We all got families and kids at home. This is our vacation to have fun.
The temperatures remain low, so it will make setup and tire selection key. In the first round of truggy practice, the track is already starting to show signs of wear.
It's gonna get rough.
typical frontrunners Ryan Maifield and Ty Tessmann top Buggy practice. But Joe Bornhorst is mere tenths behind them. Could this be a breakout DNC for Joe? For the paid professionals who are chasing the third highest contingency check in the industry, DNC epitomizes pressure. For the privateer drivers, this is a bucket list race.
Probably it's the most fun thing I do on a day-to-day basis. Get to travel around, go to a bunch of races, and do something I love, so.
It's in our backyard, why not? Why wouldn't we come? It's DNC, we gotta come out and have fun. It's different feel this year so far. New venue, it's gonna take some getting used to, but it's good stuff.
Probably because it's like the biggest race in the whole country, if not like the world. There's people all over that come here to race, so.
By the time the buggies roll out, the track was starting to get rough. The top drivers needed to drive cautious, but at the same time, they still needed to put in a fast top 3 laps to get grouped with other drivers of similar speeds. The unthinkable happens to Ty. He breaks an arm in the first seeding round.
I had a bit of a crash on the middle double and broken arm. So I'm putting softer plastics on now. It's so cold, it should feel pretty close to the same. It just will be more durable.
I hope we get to run the next one.
If he doesn't get another run, he will be grouped in with the D group. This will make pacing himself difficult and could very well set the tone for his entire Nitro Challenge. The final seeding round starts just as the sun begins to set. Tessmann, badly needing a second round of Buggy, may not get his wish. Truggies are up first. This isn't a class that the European drivers run very often. In fact, for most of them, this is the only time they run this class.
Quite jumpy, that track. Looked like Supercross. But it was good. That's learning a little bit craggy. It's a new one, so just learning tires and how to drive it and so on. So we normally don't drive this, so I just drive once per year here, so we'll see.
As if this isn't hard enough, Kyosho has Elliott running a slightly less than current Truggy.
Yeah, for a 12-year-old truck, pretty good. I'll take that.
Elliott surprised himself with a second place seeding time.
What'd you change on it? Like, is there anything you can even change on that thing?
Yeah. You have to use like a sledgehammer, like old school hammer and chisel.
Did you put different E-clips on it or something?
Yeah, lighter ones.
Yeah,
that makes a big difference. How embarrassing is it for the other guys though? I mean, it wasn't just the 3 laps that I was happy with. We could do like the whole run, pretty consistent. It was a lot easier to drive then, and I could really push it, which I like.
I think just a lot of guys are thinking that round 1 is going to be our only round to seed us. So there's like a little bit more like panic or frantic, but at the end of the day, it's like the track's going to change so much from now to when qualifying starts, especially for Buggy, because we're going to have a whole day of truck and e-buggy qualifying before we even get back on the track with Nitro. So, for now, it's like you're just trying to get a decent seed time and try some different tires and compounds, but it's really going to come down to the weather and what the track does if and when we get some weather.
With round 2 just starting lower Buggy heats, a massive storm cell surrounds the track. The skies soon open up.
45 seconds left.
While Ty was seated in the top spot for Truggy, he would not be so fortunate in Buggy. He is securely placed in the bottom pro heat, in the 47 spot. What would this rain do to the track for tomorrow? Would there even be a tomorrow?
A little wet.
Joey's mission, should he choose to accept it, would be to pump off the track. To say it was a mess would be an understatement, but hey, crappy weather is what makes a DNC a DNC. In the end, it became clear that Joey made the right call on moving the track. The original location was under even more water now. The asphalt pits, with only a few exceptions, are nearly completely dry.
It's like England, isn't it?
Joey and his crew worked through most of the morning trying to rid the track of the standing puddles. It was going to be a very long day of qualifying.
It rain like every Nitro Challenge you go to, no matter what state you're in.
Nitro Challenge, you're always dealing with the elements, but Joey will get out there and he'll get the track back in shape.
It's gonna rain again by noontime.
2 hours past the official start time, the crew is sucking up the last of the standing water.
Throw some hay bales or sawdust down and go racing. At the end of the day, it'll, cream will rise to the top.
The dirt crew is spent. After a morning of hard work, they have done everything possible to get the track in near runnable condition. Next up, a few brave volunteers to help drive the track up the old-fashioned way, including Daniel Backflip Adams with his Pro 2 MT. The track was eventually deemed runnable, and Heat 1 was up.
Yep, everybody got the beanies on out there, the big jackets. It is pretty chilly out there right now. For Southern California standards, it's cold out here.
Too cold here.
The first heats would hit the track just after noon. It would be best for these racers to just buy and build new kits before the second round.
Do you buy your cars? Then don't race.
Regardless of the less than stellar conditions, qualifying is officially underway. Whenever adverse conditions hit, Joey often jokes, it's the Nitro Challenge, not the Nitro Easy. But with the temperatures barely above freezing, this was turning out to be more like the Nitro Impossible. The sun was out for now, so the track drying was somewhat accelerated. But for how long would the current conditions hold? In the pits, drivers are working on their setups, trying to have a setup that matches the conditions as close as possible. Contrary to what the internet would have most believe, the drivers actually get along pretty good. The pro drivers, for all intents and purposes, are co-workers after all. But are there some drivers that are more aggressive than others?
I don't know. It depends on the situation, I guess. I mean, I don't really mind who's behind me as long as I'm in front of them.
I don't know. Just I like everyone, so I don't really hate and so on. So it just I hope it will be a night race.
I don't really like anybody behind me. I'm not real comfortable with anybody behind.
When I'm leading, I want to be gone.
Probably, if there's anybody that I'd like having behind me, it's probably Adam.
If I did have to have someone close behind me, I would say Cavalieri or Tessmann. I've had a lot of experience racing with both of those guys. I think they're both very respectful and good to drive with.
I don't have any really favorite guy in front of us behind me. I don't know. I like anyone. I like racing anyone.
You want to redo that? You think telling the whole world you don't like anybody behind you is good?
Well, who did I say?
Nobody.
Nobody? I just said nobody.
You're not afraid of anybody. You're telling the whole world you're afraid of everybody. Is that wise?
What?
Don't put that in.
Nice of you.
Would any of these drivers check out in this first round, or would we see close battles? Like most races, the two favorites going into qualifying are once again Ty Tessmann and Ryan Maifield. But the real story here is Joe Bornhorst, who was top seed after yesterday's practice session. Was he fast for more than 3 laps, though?
Yeah, truck was good. Made a couple adjustments just for the weather, so it's so cold. Got out kind of, just held it wide open basically. I mean, the pace is pretty insane considering how pretty much rough the track is, and we didn't really know what we were getting into out there. But considering how much water got put down on it last night, it was pretty good, and it seemed like the speed was still on the track.
Maifield sets the pace early. Ty, who would end up only 4 tenths behind Ryan, had a brutal start.
Well, I wasn't really around a whole lot of people until I kind of got into the traffic bit, but I couldn't really pace myself. It was hard to see around the track where Maifield was, so I don't know if he made mistakes or not, but we'll have to see how the rest of the qualifying goes. I think we'll be okay though. I feel like I'm driving good, and the car's getting around the track, so as long as there's no mistakes, especially when it gets bumpy, I think that's the key.
A lot of people are going fast. It's just, can you do it without crashing?
Top seed Bornhorst was struggling, and with the exception of the first lap, he was never higher than 9th in his heat. Joe would finish 22nd overall. Not how any one of these drivers wants to start out, given that the weather forecast was looking like round 1 might be the only round of qualifying.
And then for looks of the weather right now, I don't know if I'll be running it again today, but
the e-buggies would close out this first round with what looked like a bit of snow falling from the unsettled skies. Even with periods of sun emerging in round 2, the temperatures were still only a few degrees above freezing. Winter garb was everywhere, as well as portable heaters and heated leopard print blankets.
Got my electric blanket.
The Drakes travel in style, and Rhonda is participating in one of her favorite pastimes, watching YouTube videos.
Who would be the honey badger? Who doesn't give? Oh, Maifield, because he just doesn't give a shit. He takes what he wants. Oh, look, a Coors Light.
With round 1 officially in the books, X-Ray is having a good showing so far by placing Marco Barufalo and Ty Tessmann on the podium. In the event that weather converges and further rounds are canceled, this will put the teammates behind Maifield for Saturday's 45-minute final. For now, the weather appears to be holding off, but given the late start, qualifying will continue under the lights a round early. For young CJ Jellin, this event would be his Nitro debut for Kyosho. Interestingly enough, he is only 2 years older than the truggy he's driving around the track. A 21st place run in round 1 and a 25th here in the second round has CJ firmly placed in the B main grouping. In the offseason, CJ was quite vocal about a toxic environment being the cause of his X-Ray departure. With only a pair of veteran pro drivers to its credit, Kevin and CJ will have to go it largely on their own.
Not very good. I'm not driving good, so that's really hurting me. I mean, that's really it. Cars has been fine. It's just so rough out there. Everybody's crashing. I try going slower so I don't crash, and they're still beating me even though they can crash. So I'm like, but I didn't triple either of the triples at all because I knew I was going to crash on them. So, I didn't do that at least, but other sections I was just slow.
CJ isn't the only one of the younger drivers struggling. Buggy world champ Davide Ongaro isn't too happy with his first couple rounds of qualifying in truggy. Unlike Jellin, Ongaro was at least qualified into the middle of the A main. Joe is in desperate need of a reversal of fortune.
It seemed like it was maybe a little bit slicker, I thought, because I ran the same tire, but overall it just kind of seemed like it had less grip.
Even though the grip was down significantly from the first round, Joe gets his wish with a third-place overall run with Maifield in second. Tessmann would squeak out the TQ with a 2-second gap over Maifield.
Yeah, I've raced in this cold. I've raced in this much wind. I've raced on this big of a track and this bumpy of a track, but not really all at the same time, so it's something definitely different.
When the e-buggies hit the track at the end of the round, it became very clear how rough the track was getting. buggy-sized holes were common on the track. In the pits, the night brought even lower temperatures and participants were desperate to stay warm, by any means necessary. For the final run of the day, Ty was having a stellar run and was driving his way to an overall TQ. That was until a tiny mistake on the final lap landed Tessmann in some traffic. By forcing Ty to single the critical triple section, his 10th place European teammate Barufalo decided to ensure that X-Ray would not TQ the Truggy class.
Well, my truck felt good again. Didn't change anything. Been the same tires, and just trying to drive around the holes, make all the jumps. That would seem like a big thing, especially I was watching the B main. The guys aren't making that back double anymore, so just trying to be precise and take my time and make the jumps and drive around the holes. And it was all going good, and then had some unexpected traffic issues, but.
Would this incident add to the already thick animosity between the domestic and European drivers? In the end, Ty wasn't all that concerned about losing out on the TQ.
It's actually probably going to be, it's definitely a lot less stress. It's not as cool because you're not top qualifier, but I think it'll be just as good a chance of winning from second or first.
Joe Bornhorst, who is in need of a solid finish, was stuck in a pack of drivers, all with very similar paces. Would he get through it cleanly? Unlike the Barufalo and Tessmann battle, this group of drivers would work together right to the end of the qualifier.
The last round was kind of crazy. There was like me, Cav, Vadier, and I think Angaro all together on the track, and it was kind of pretty dicey between us. I'm just like, stay away from me. I just want to finish my run. Like I wasn't trying to go fast, wasn't trying to pass anyone. Just trying to finish my last couple laps, and it worked out. Got a 4 for the round, so yeah, good to go.
Joe's 4th place finish in the round would put him into the 3rd starting spot for Saturday's main final. Tessmann would be starting from 2nd, with Maifield earning the pole. None of these drivers will have much time to think about Saturday's Truggy main. It's time to focus on Buggy, on one of the bumpiest tracks many of these drivers have ever seen. Overnight, Joey did his best to repair the jump faces and fill some of the larger craters. And with the warmer temperature, we saw the track watering crews for the first time since practice. With so much of the top talent in attendance, the Buggy class may very well show us who the best rough track driver in the world is. Nearly every single European driver seated into the top heat. Maifield, who struggled in seating, is in the B group. Davide, the odds-on favorite in the pits to win, sets a blistering pace. Tessmann, all the way back in the D grouping, is having what appears to be a solid run. But with no one to pace himself, he's well short of the paces set by Ongaro and Maifield.
Hopefully we can get a little bit more grip, make the car easier to drive, and get around the track faster with no mistakes. I think it's possible. We'll just have to do our best to do it.
Ty's 12-lap run will place him 6th overall. Will he be able to close the gap between himself and Ongaro, who is still leading the A group qualifier?
I think if I had more grip, I could go a little faster. But then we have the issue of it being hard to drive, which we're working on the car setup to do that. So I think the combination of the two should really help. And maybe he was doing some different lines, so maybe try that out too on the track, but we'll see. By the time we run again, it might be totally different again.
Not crashing would be key.
When it comes down to it, we got to race at the end, and that's the biggest thing. I think if we can be closer to the front and pressure, the track is biting everybody, so no one is making a perfectly clean run. So that's the opportunity. If you can stay on your wheels, that's our opportunity.
In the B group, Maifield was out front. Things were not looking so well for Bornhorst. He was well off the pace and struggling with the character of the track.
He's got character, all right. He is a character. He's all about character. Everything about him says character. His car's character, his truck's character. He's super character.
I don't know if you haven't heard.
He's a bad character. Bad character. I don't like it.
How'd Jill Bornhorst do?
Terrible.
Does that make you happy?
Yeah.
Joe would finish in the 19th spot for the round. Up front, it was Ryan dominating the B qualifier. But was his pace good enough to best Ungaro's?
It was pretty good. I was in the B resort after not a great seating practice. And yeah, I didn't really know how fast to go. Just kind of cruising around, avoiding the bumps best I could. And then I made a slight bobble at the end. I had to get Marshall on the last lap. That cost me some time, but still got a 2 for the round. I would have been 2 even without that crash. So Ungaro drove really well, picked the right lines. Car looked good, and yeah. So the rest of us got to figure it out. You know, he was just kind of hammering through the bumps, wasn't jumping the big jump. We were all trying to go for the big jump. So just need to make my run a little more efficient. That's basically what he did. Is just drove around really efficiently, and you know, wasn't trying to avoid them, just kind of powering through bumps. So mount up another set of tires and do it again.
Davide laid down a beating on the field. He finished 10 seconds ahead of Maifield in second and 11 seconds ahead of Ronald in third.
Happy, but I try to find the line on the track, the good line on the track. Also, I don't make the triple here. I make 2 and 1. I think for me it's easier.
So far, in the Europeans versus the North Americans battle, the Euro drivers are winning. The Davids of Ungaro and Ronald are in first and third respectively. Elliott Boots also puts in a solid run with his brand new Inferno MP10 and an all-new Reds engine.
It was pretty good actually. I think we got a 4th in that run. The car was quite hard to drive though. The conditions out there are like crazy with the winds. A couple of times I got caught in the wind. I landed like funny, but I didn't crash completely, which wasn't too bad. But just all the bumps and stuff out there now, you just have to just really go slow, pick your lines, just like be a nice rhythm around the track. So now we're going to make a few changes there because it wasn't quite right, and hopefully it'll be better for the next one.
Will any of them have a shot at catching Davide?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't make a mistake. I had a few crashes, so that's what happens when you don't make a mistake out there. Because the marshal's so far away. The crash is 5 seconds. You have 2 of them, you know, that's it. We're going to change pistons, shock coils, caster, springs. We're going full length tyres. We're going to run a setup from the UK National one time we run it. Similar conditions, so that's what kind of gave us the idea. And yeah, we'll go.
Elliott's new teammate isn't faring so good. CJ's Truggy day was rough, and so far, Buggy is no better.
Every lap seems like the bumps are just getting worse and worse. It's going to be hard to drive tomorrow and each day. Mains, I don't know how we're going to even go around the track, really.
While his Nitro Challenge didn't go a whole lot better at this stage of the event last year, the support group that CJ had appeared to be stronger.
He said he thought he had a shot going because it was getting weird.
Unlike his Truggy, which is antiquated to say the least, CJ is also running the brand new Kyosho Buggy. But the bumps are wreaking havoc on CJ's driving style.
Actually separates the pros from the Joes, and I'm kind of a mixture. I'm a pro and a Joe right now. Can't really decide what I want to be, but I'm going to figure it out. This Kyosho car is really good on the road, so I'm looking forward to it.
CJ is at a crossroads of his young career, and it could go either way for him. Jelen only has a couple years to prove that he can win at this level. Very few drivers who haven't won before 16 make the transition from Joe to pro. The only Joe that is the exception to this pretty reliable rule is Bornhorst. If he's to make the main, this Joe needs round 2 to go well. Davide Ungaro is leading, but just behind him is Marco Barufalo. And with a track this challenging, the qualifier isn't won until the final lap is completed. And it is on the final lap the Davide loses the lead.
Great TQ time here in the first heat of 4.
3 heat races ago, Marco's teammate was doing everything he could to force his pace. But with literally no other top drivers in his heat, Tessmann didn't have anyone to push him or anyone to chase. He still hasn't achieved the pace he needs.
Well, I think the biggest problem is he doesn't know when to gauge himself. He doesn't know how fast he has to go. They've all got a bar set for them, and that's a big advantage, I think. When you're in a heat with guys that are just as fast as you, you can hear the announcer, you know how hard you have to push, and I mean, it's our own fault we're in the bottom heat, but we're going to work hard and try to get up closer to the front. We've got a 6 and a 4, so it's not out of the question yet, but we'll see how it goes.
In the top heat, Marco would steal the top spot from Davide, who bobbled on his final lap.
TQ for Marco, it's awesome. If he can TQ the last round, then he'll have overall TQ, which should be really good. X-ray to win is very important. I mean, that would be phenomenal. We could get Ty up there too. I mean, it's a team effort, not just an individual sport.
I mean, overall, you want the team to win. I mean, if the team wins and you're a part of that team, you're also winning. This is kind of an individual sport. You know, you want to win for yourself, but at the end of the day, if you can't win for yourself, you want the team to win. And for me, especially kind of in the role I am with development and helping the team, whether it's Proline or Mugen, OS, I'm kind of all hands-on trying to help everyone. So for me, it's always rewarding to see the team win. If it can be me, great. If not, I want it to be one of my teammates.
The track is beyond character. Hey, you can't bing me. I'm the narrator.
Yeah, I'm the producer.
Okay. The track was freaking rough. Given that this is one of, if not the most challenging DNC tracks ever built, the more input from lower team drivers, the better chance a manufacturer has for putting their best driver into the winner's circle.
Yeah, the character of my car is matching the character of my driving, and the track's character is coming around great. So I think the overall character of my next run is going to be excellent.
The race for TQ seemed to be between Barufalo and Ungaro. Seemingly out of nowhere, Ronafalk took it. And with a 6-second gap over Ungaro, this is the perfect time for Ronafalk to find his pace.
It was a very good run. I felt super confident already on the first lap. I made a bunch of changes to my car and trying to make it easier to drive. The track is so rough out there, so the European tracks, they normally get pretty rough, so we're used to running on it. Like you can see the Europeans doing very good here so far.
If there wasn't a rivalry between Europe and America before this race started, there most definitely is now. 4 of the top 5 drivers are all European.
Yeah, the Europeans are going fast. It's I don't know if it's just the style track or just, they've kind of elevated their game. I mean, obviously it's always super close when it comes down to it in racing. And, the Americans will be right there in the mix as well. But, yeah, that last round especially, the Europeans are going good.
I don't know. They're driving pretty dang good. I don't know. It's not over yet. They're doing good though.
Do a little track prep after Buggy quals. Getting ready for the main, so we'll make sure they can make these jumps. We'll leave the rest of it kind of bumpy, but we want to see some air time.
Two more long days remain in this 20th and arguably the most difficult Nitro challenge yet. Between the new venue, an unmatched level of competition, the most difficult track in DNC history, is this event unrecognizable as a Nitro challenge? A familiar face has entered the fray, and suddenly, DNC feels like a DNC again.
That's what I just said. That is untrue, unfounded. But I'm glad to be here.
In Truggy qualifying, it was the Ty and Ryan show. Who will it be in the mains? And what of the European dominance in Buggy? Will it continue? Lower mains on both Truggy and Buggy final days have taken their toll on the already gnarled track. What were once smooth corners are now minefields. How will young CJ Jellin, who has struggled to adapt his driving style to these adverse conditions, cope? Truggy finals start out for him in the C main. He bumps up to the B main. Even with starting at the back, in just 5 laps, Jellin works his way into a bump spot. Craig manages to hold on, and he is headed to a DNC Truggy A main for the first time in his career. Buggy is a different matter altogether. Jellin starts his day out 1 main better than in Truggy, C main. He finishes in second behind Reno Savoia. In the B main, Craig gets a better start, which is more than can be said for Dakota Finn. B mains at the Nitro Challenge tend to be a star-studded affair. This year is no exception. Drake, Rivkin, Stees, Savoia, to name just a few. Jellin's DNC comes to an abrupt end.
It went better than last year, I will say, in the mains. Made 2 out of 3, but just broke in that last one. Pacing Dakota and went over the triple. I hit him in the air and my car went up to the right side and just went down on it. I tried saving it, but broke an arm. But that was all my fault. So gonna get used to the car some more and come back to Silver State.
CJ isn't the only one whose day ends early. Back in the Truggy class, David Ronefalk would DNF in the B main. Things also take a turn for the worse in the Tessmann camp.
He's having a snooze in the van because he's sick. So hopefully he gets feeling better before the mains.
With all lower mains now complete, it's time for the first of the A mains to be run, E-Buggy. The electric buggies would be run on the same day as the Truggies, so the track could very well be completely different for tomorrow's Nitro Buggy final. But a dominant driver did emerge. David Ronefalk, starting from the TQ position, led 19 of the 20 laps, including the most important lap, the last one.
Yeah, exactly what I wanted it to be like. It's very hard out there, so I definitely didn't want to race some guys out there. That's what I hoped for, and luckily it worked out that way, and I could build up a big gap and I could kind of cruise from there. My cars are feeling great, so I don't expect anything else than to be fighting for the win tomorrow as well. Unfortunately, I didn't make the truck main, so I have to sit out that one out, but I will just relax, go back to the hotel, and get ready for tomorrow.
As the race program gets through the 40-plus sportsman and intermediate classes in both electric buggy and Truggy, the track conditions continue to get more and more confusing. Each A main seems to have a slightly different track condition. The only constant is that it's bumpy.
I hate just trying to chase the unknown, you know? How much water is going to be in the track, the temperature dropping, we're trying to keep track of everything and keep up on it, and it's difficult because temperatures dropped so fast just before this race, and I think we should have been a little bit lighter. But now at least we know what to do for truck, and we just didn't got ourselves with our pants down. It won't happen in truck.
We don't really have a choice. We need to go fast.
You're the driver, little Timmy.
It's not like it's that big of a risk.
Ty and his Proline teammates are trying to decide which tires to use.
Even if I have a tread, it stays the same.
He's leaning towards running an M3 hole shot. Will his teammates follow suit by running a micro pin? Will they last for 45 minutes?
I ran S4 and E-Buggy and just didn't really feel like I had that much grip, so it's going to be even colder and there's going to be more moisture in the track by the time we're on truck, so M3 should be good. S3s. That's what he wanted to do. We'll see. I tried. I was like, dude, I don't know. But he wants his truck to be good at the end more than he wants at the beginning, so we'll see.
Unless CJ is planning on attaching a heater to his truggy, similar to the one Ronnie Ripken is hauling up to the stand for Spencer, the harder compound might be a huge mistake.
Sponsored by Team Associated LRP, aka
After being in the rain and cold for the past 3 days, it's finally time for the second most important race of the week, the Pro Truck Final. Each truck has been meticulously prepped. Drivers and mechanics both hope that all the lessons learned in qualifying will ensure that they are putting down the perfectly set up vehicle. The driver introduction's in, and it's time for a 5-minute warm-up session. The 15 best truggy drivers on the week are set to see who will be the champion. Maifield starts from pole and leads early, but it looks like Tessmann has something for him after all. But he fades quickly. By lap 4, Ryan has already more than a 5-second lead. It was going to be a long night for the other 14 drivers.
The first lap, I had high hopes. I got following Maifield and kind of like had to check up a couple times. I thought we'd have a good race. Just kind of let him. I didn't want to push too hard. I just wanted to kind of get in the rhythm and pull away from the rest of the field. Then I made one small bobble and it just kind of, I couldn't keep up anymore. Just my truck was kind of hard to drive. I think maybe the shock wells were a little bit too heavy. So then I was trying to maintain, just keep going, just keep plugging away and end up making more mistakes.
While Ty's mistakes happened on the track, CJ Jellens may have started off track. Kevin watches CJ, who is struggling to find grip, which is not surprising since the S compound isn't typically used in these temperatures. Craig does his best to drive around his less than optimal tire selection, and he makes it as high as 8th position when he brakes. A disappointed Kevin trudges back to the pits to pack up for the night. Given that CJ failed to make it out of the Buggy B mains, his DNC would end in disappointment. While he did make the Truggy final, his showing in Buggy was worse than last year. He would have a shot at redemption in a few short months at the Silver State race. For the others, it's time for pit stops. Incidental contact from Joe Bornhorst Truggy injures Leanne's elbow as she was in the midst of filling up Ty's tank.
My fuel tank didn't get filled up all the way. So then I ran out of gas coming down the straightaway. Luckily, I crossed the line, but then got started back up again and then just was kind of on damage control and tried to salvage what I could. I was trying to catch Joe. I almost caught him a couple times, but then just made more mistakes.
Joe, now one position ahead of Ty, sets his sights on Davide. With 2 mistakes in the last 3 corners, Joe pulls ahead of Davide on the track. Unfortunately, this is not a battle for position. At the halfway point of the race, Joe is 1 lap down from Davide and race leader Maifield. The laps tick away. The track becomes more and more blown out. Up front, Ryan is just managing the gap to Davide. He is holding a steady 7 to 10 second lead on the young Italian. With less than 10 minutes to go, Ungaro will have to press to close the gap or hope for a mistake by Maifield. One spot behind Bornhorst in 4th, Tessmann was in a heated battle with Barufalo. Before long, the 2 teammates tangle yet again. Ty would come out on top of Marco, but between this battle and running out of fuel, Bornhorst just might be out of reach.
5 seconds to go.
Barufalo was unrepentant.
No, because I touched him before and I wait him. But in the last 2 laps, he hit me and didn't expect me.
Whether this was simply a battle for position or not is moot. The fact is, Ty would finish in the worst spot possible, 4th, 1 spot off the podium.
Try to salvage what I could. I was trying to catch Joe. I almost caught him a couple times, but then just made more mistakes. And it was a pretty crazy race in the back. There's a lot of battling, and there's some. This track makes it hard, and everybody's pushing so hard, so it's just absolute chaos.
Davide tries for one final surge, but in the last 5 laps, Maifield average is 0.2 faster than Ungaro.
Difficult, but really good. I find the line on the track, and now I'm ready for tomorrow for the 1.8 Buggy.
Joe Bornhorst would hold off Ty, and he would secure the final podium spot.
It was good. I mean, just kind of lost touch with the guys at the beginning. Maifield and Ungaro were going fast, so truck was good the entire time. M3 buckshots were good, no fade, and just kind of I was pretty close to Ty at the end. Had a little bit more pace than him at the end, I thought. Maybe he just ran out of tire. I know he ran a whole shot and I ran a buckshot, so I still had good grip at the end, and I was good. So just quick enough laps and got another podium. So pumped.
In mere moments, Ryan Maifield would celebrate yet another win here at DNC.
The truck was amazing. The engine was unreal. The fuel mileage, I was pitting at 9. These guys were saying I had more than a minute of fuel left over. Jumping that triple was super easy. I haven't had that much power in Truggy years, and it made it a lot more fun to drive, and I don't want to say easier, but a lot more competitive, that's for sure. So.
Will this podium foreshadow what is to come in Buggy tomorrow?
I think the Buggy main's probably going to be a little more intense than the truck main. The buggies are a little bit harder to drive. I felt pretty comfortable out there bouncing around through the bumps of the truck because it's so big. So, we'll see. I'm excited for tomorrow. Hopefully it can go just as well. It's nice to get on the podium. This race is so long. You want to have something to show for it at the end. So I got a 3 in e-buggy today and got the win in truck. So hopefully we can do close to the same tomorrow.
Sunday, the last day of this rebooted Nitro Challenge. While Maifield was the winner last night, one of the surprising stories was Joe Bornhorst. Would Joe's Cinderella story continue, or would it be nothing more than a fond memory? The crews were set and brimming with confidence for their respective drivers. There was one notable absence in the pits. Gord Tessmann was nowhere to be found. The pestilence that has infected Gord has taken a turn for the worse. He would not be performing pit duties for his son. He would be watching the race from the pits.
I would like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. Car number 6 is Ty Tessmann.
Ty hasn't really looked himself at this DNC, so how would yet another blow affect him? Would the European buggy dominance hold, or would one of the North American drivers manage to break through? Ryan does have winning pedigree at DNC on his side. One thing is certain, whoever wants to win this race cannot let TQ Davide Ungaro pull away. If anyone is to have a hope of beating the Italian world champion, they will have to keep him in traffic. We're just 45 minutes away from finding out who would be the coveted buggy champ. The start wasn't exactly a clean one. A wreck would collect most of the contenders, including Ungaro and Tessmann. On the second lap, Ty was flustered and commits yet another unforced error. By lap 7, he has dropped to the 10th spot.
I didn't really see what happened on the start because I had to start Ty, obviously from the grid, and all I heard was, "Oh crap!" and there's just cars flying all over the place.
Gord, seeing how far back his son was, has made his way trackside, but he is unable to join Leanne and Daniel in the pits. Davide Ongaro isn't faring much better than Ty. He is currently in 9th, but he seems to be marching forward, while Ty's progress has somewhat halted. Up front, it was Maifield, in a heated battle with David Ronefalk. This battle had striking similarities to the 2014 DNC where Ronefalk was trying to chase down Tessmann. Ty won that battle 5 years ago. Would Ronefalk come out on top this year? David looks just a bit faster, but Maifield is smarter. He has literally memorized where each hole was. David, not so much. Another wreck only moments later would end his DNC.
Yeah, me and Ryan was checked out. I never thought something like that would happen. I kind of hit a hole there in the back. I think that hole landing the triple, and my car was sent out outside the pipe. And you know, I tried to get back on it as fast as I could, and I hit that trailer with the light over there, and my front arm snapped. So it is what it is.
The Europeans who dominated qualifying now appear to be completely out of it. Ongaro, now in 5th, appears to be their only hope. Ronefalk wouldn't be the only one to have mechanical issues. Cav was losing the wing of his brand new S-Works ride. He comes into the pits for a quick repair. Any hopes of showcasing his new ride with a podium finish have now completely vanished. The track was continuing to deteriorate. Even the smoothest of drivers were crashing.
I got screwed off the start a little bit and got sent straight to the back. I think I was like 13th or 14th. And within 5 to 6 minutes made just an awesome charge and was, I think in 2nd for a while.
Joe would in fact hold 2nd spot for several laps.
If you missed your line by just a couple inches, it was Marshall. And I think I just kind of started missing my lines a little bit here and there, and just lost touch with the group that I was on, or group that I was with, and ended up 7th. So
Time for another cycle of pit stops. And Dakota Finn, who was upside down at the start of the B main when we last saw him, was now in 4th spot and closing in on Joe. Finn, who ended finishing 3rd in the previously mentioned B main, was on a tear. It's the closing minutes, and we're back in pit lane. Joe has a few issues getting in and out. It doesn't really affect his position, which is now a much larger number than he would like. The same is true for Elliott. He's in the 11th spot and isn't happy with the handling of his buggy.
Yeah, but I mean, there's bumps and then there's like craters. You know, they're only small cars. So we just need to do a bit more time on the cars. You know, we made the cars better as a team. We're working together. So you know, it's just a stepping stone in the right direction. It's, you know, it wasn't great, the car then for me, but we'll figure it out.
With Jared Tebow's departure from Kyosho, Elliott is now the veteran driver for a very young team.
I guess I've got kind of Jared's position now. I mean, I'm not old, but you know, I'm the older driver. I like to think I'm not old, but you know, it is what it is. And they're good guys. Nice to meet them all, and they were friendly. We worked together good. So yeah.
Interestingly enough, just a few weeks later, Elliott would leave Kyosho also. After what feels like forever, Elliott's tenure with Kyosho is over. He would join Cavalieri over at S-Works. Silver State would be the debut for his new ride, and it couldn't have gone better. Boots, running an all-new and clearly improved Reds engine, would take the win over tire teammate Tessmann. Ryan Maifield would finish 3rd. But Silver State is a couple of months away. For right now, Maifield is absolutely beating on the field at DNC. Ryan's margin of victory was nearly 31 seconds over second place.
Here they go in the third spot and TQ, Mr. David Ongaro. In the second spot, Dakota Fenn. And your new Pro Buggy AMA Nitro Challenge Champion 2019 back-to-back, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Maifield.
Ongaro would round out the podium, and Dakota really put on a great show, coming all the way up from starting 6th in the B main. While not his most memorable performance at the Nitro Challenge, Maifield's buggy performance was one of dominance. His new racing program suits his driving style very well, considering how he ended last year.
I wonder how Mario and Marco Rossi are feeling right now, firing the Dirt Nitro Challenge champion in both Truggy and Buggy. Just curious. I would like to maybe get an interview from them.
That was insane. It felt, I know it was intense, but it didn't feel very intense because I had to stay so calm internally, you know what I mean? Just to because the track, if you got a little wild, the car would just go nuts. So I was up there just constantly breathing and taking my time and making sure I did everything slow. And I got a big lead and I just cruised to the finish. Car was phenomenal. Team worked awesome together. Got the shock package for this super rough stuff, crazy good. Better than I've ever driven on a rough track. Car worked phenomenal, team worked phenomenal together. Tires were good. It was a good week.
While Joe Bornhorst didn't get the storybook ending he was hoping for after making the Truggy podium, he was still very satisfied with his performance here, and he was a contender for most of the main.
Still a great weekend. I mean, I got second, third yesterday, and then 7th today. I thought I had a podium in me, but that just was on me. So still happy, still a good weekend, and we'll come back again next time stronger.
I should have drove better in the main, but I don't know. It's just I didn't really feel comfortable with the Nitro Buggy all weekend. Kind of had a bad practice. I kind of maybe I set the tone a little bit, but just kind of driving around in the main. Got maybe a little bit too racy sometimes. Didn't hit my lines. Made a lot of mistakes, but.
With only tenths of a second separating the top 6 finishers, this race literally could have gone to any one of them.
Joe was running up there, Ty was running up there. I mean, the guys, we worked together as much as we could this week to make happen what we could. And, Joe had a really good weekend for sure. So, I mean, there's always room for improvement no matter what you do in life. So, we're going to take what we learned from here and move on.
The 20th running of the DNC is over. While the race started out in near disaster, the end result was a resounding success. After 12 years in Phoenix, this California edition had some big shoes to fill, and it ended up having that familiar DNC feel to it. 600 plus entries, a very challenging track, intense competition, questionable weather. So it's really a testament to Joey, and he proved definitively that he did not bite off more than he could chew. In fact, he put on as grand a spectacle as any other Nitro Challenge, and it remains one of the greatest RC races in the world.
DNC out.
You can't have evidence
is that I like him, that I'm friends.
You like Joe?
No, I hate Joe.